Okay, so the answer to this question would be along the following lines. First of all, what Allah has created of the body and also of life or biological life is very complicated and has many different aspects and many layers. Right? What Allah has created of biological life, it's very complex, there are many layers and there are many aspects. And the creation over many centuries or many thousands of years, they have tried to look at the body, and often they theorize and they try to gain a working knowledge of how they think the body is functioning. And on top of that, they then have medical systems. Right? And so mankind has differed tremendously in these types of issues. And the body itself, there's different elements to the body. There are chemical reactions, chemical pathways, biochemical pathways. And this is what modern medicine largely looks at, the modern medicine of the 20th century, which is really the allopathic medicine. It is the Rockefeller medicine, right, of synthetic drugs, and it's on the basis of it's all premised upon war and attack, and so we have like anti this, anti that, antiviral, antifungal, antibiotic, anti this, whatever, and it has a certain model that has a lot of theory behind it, and this is the predominant model of medicine. It wasn't always like this before the 20th century. Before the 20th century, most medicine in Europe was actually homeopathic. Right? In the continent, in Germany and other places, most medicine was actually homeopathic, it was naturopathic, it was built upon certain understanding that the body is a complete and perfect system that is self-regulating, self-healing, self-coordinating, and any illnesses that arise, they are because of violations in diet and conduct and behavior and exposure, right? And the body then reacts trying to correct its course, and in that process the body has symptoms, right? The symptoms are not the disease. The symptoms are a sign of the body undergoing a correction mechanism. So the understanding of all medicine prior to the 20th century is that we basically try to aid and support the body in doing what it is trying to do, and not to fight against the body to suppress what it is trying to do. That's what all of medicine pretty much used to be in all civilizations and in all of history. And homeopathy was a major form of medicine prior to the Rockefeller takeover and monopolization and corporatization of medicine in the 20th century. Now, how does homeopathy work? Well, remember I said to you at the beginning that there are different aspects of looking at the body, right? And one way is to look purely chemical reactions. Chemical reactions, biochemical pathways, right? And you look at, okay, where can we intervene to inhibit a certain chemical reaction, right, in order to inhibit the symptoms, right? This is Rockefeller medicine. This is 20th century corporatized, medicine, right? How can we intervene in biochemical reactions and to create drugs, right, and patent those drugs? This is patentable medicine of the 20th century. But this is only a very narrow-minded view of the body, because the body is much more than just biochemical reactions, right? So this type of medicine is very reductionist. It reduces it down to like one narrow element. It is very materialistic, and it ignores many other things, right? So the other things that make up the body, for example, in the body, everything, actually every organ, actually has frequencies and vibrations, right? And they are detectable and known. The brain has frequencies, vibrations, your organs, your liver, everything has an actual frequency and a vibration, right? So this is an actual aspect of the body. The heart, there's a lot of electricity. Your body runs on electricity, right? And so there's waves, there's frequency. Somehow the body is able to generate power. Have you ever thought, how on earth is, like, how can a battery, say for example, for a Tesla, for example, right, it needs to be charged all the time and whatever, but how can a man, right, lift weights and lift all sorts throughout the whole of the day and not actually feel tired? And all the functions of the body, like, where's the battery in here? Where's the energy actually coming from? Where's it actually coming from? Right? And so the modern science, it is missing a great deal as to how the body actually functions, because it ignores, at least in practice, many of these other aspects of the body. So here, frequency, vibration, and the electrical element in the body, that's one part of it. Even just the water itself. Water itself is another neglected topic, because there's more to water than what we actually think, right? And water is, as they say, 70-80% of the body, and they have like a very simplistic understanding of water. Likewise, the blood, right? My point being, then there's also the soul as well. There's also the soul. What about the soul in health and disease? So all of these things are not really incorporated holistically into medicine. What we see is one group over here focusing on like the biochemical reactions. Another group over there, for example, we see maybe the Chinese, they will have this issue of like the acupuncture is based upon nerve bundles in certain areas that are blocking the flow of the electrical flow of the body, so they will focus on those and correct those. Then you have different people who focus upon the actual structure of the body, the skeleton, and how that can lead to illnesses. So the point being, there are so many different ways and means, and no one can say this is wrong and this is right, because this all goes back down to experience and what people have found to be beneficial through empirical means, meaning through actual empirical experience. So no one can say, oh, this is snake oil medicine and this is real medicine and this is, you can't really say that, because if you wanted to go down that route and you wanted to follow, if you wanted to use modern medicine as the basis, then you would have to deny the prophetic medicine. You would have to deny hijama as being quackery, right? You would have to deny many of the authentic narrations of the Messenger of Allah that have come, which contain cures for certain things. Right? You'd have to deny them and dismiss them. Why? Oh, well, because we don't have randomized controlled trials. We don't have this. You can't speak like that. Right? Medicine works on tajriba, on actual experience. Right? And you can't deny the experience of people, of societies, of nations in their medicine. So coming back to the issue of homeopathy, the way homeopathy works is on the principle of it actually comes back down to actual vibrations and putting things into water in terms of the frequency and the vibration of water, right? So they put certain things, they dilute it and keep diluting it, because it's not the actual molecule but what the molecule imparts to the water of frequencies and vibrations, which when you consume, it then alters the environment in your body. right, to allow the cells to function in the right, in the right way. So anyhow, the point being that there's a particular underlying theory or understanding upon which homeopathy is actually built. And if you go back into the 19th century, before the takeover of medicine, you'll find that the majority of doctors, were actually into this type of medicine, of naturopathy and homeopathy, and which is, using good living, good diet as a foundation, and then using simple methods to facilitate the body's self-healing mechanisms, right? So as Ibn al-Qayyim said, the prophetic medicine is all about living healthily, eating healthily, having optimism, right? All the basic things. And if you live that life like Bedouins live a simple life, then you will only suffer simple diseases which last a very short time and resolve very quickly, right? And this is the basis of the prophetic medicine, right? Eat little, sleep well, be active, be optimistic, eat small in quantity but nutritious, like all those other things that we find, right? Try to go hungry, right? So if you want to live that life, then the type of medicine that you will need will correspond to that type of life. And that's why, as Ibn al-Qayyim says, when you go to the Bedouins who are living away from the cosmopolitan societies, right, they're eating simple foods, whatever, their illnesses are very simple, very short-lived, they hardly need any treatment. But if you go in the cities where every type of food is available and you're eating lots of different foods and things like this, then the type of illnesses will correspond to that, and you will have complex illnesses, right? And so this is why today, the lifestyle of today is exactly this, right? These are these are diseases that relate to the way you actually live. And that's why you will see a transition from like the 18th, 19th century, where most of the diseases were basically what we can call the dirt diseases, right? The diseases where you don't have clean water, you don't have good nutrition, you are living in filth, you don't have lavatories, you don't have sewage systems, right? And so the type of illnesses you are going to get the poxes, right? Where basically your body has been poisoned with maybe arsenic or lead or other things, and your body's trying to get them out of the body, right? It's trying to expel them through the quickest route possible, which is through the skin or the lymph nodes or whatever it might be. And all the other diseases, the poxes, the scarlet fever and this and that, whatever, right? But as soon as social changes were made in societies, right, all of these diseases basically disappeared. And that's why when you look at the graphs of the early 20th century, where you start when all these social reforms were made in Europe and other places, expanding the roads so they're wider, sewage systems, water into the house, lavatories, focusing on better nutrition. This is why those so-called alleged infectious diseases, they all basically virtually disappeared, or they became more or less harmless, except to severely compromised, children or people, right? The rates just simply disappeared like this. Before vaccination and any, mass vaccination, they just disappeared like that, which showed that these were diseases of society, of the way of living, of the circumstances, and that's what eliminated these diseases, right? Do not believe the propaganda of the serum pushers, the vaccine pushers, the pus injectors. All of this is propaganda and it is lies, right? I give the example many times. This is like the man who goes to an ocean, and as the tide comes in and it's ready to go back out again, he takes his bucket and he basically starts taking the water and throwing it, and then he claims, my bucket is what made the tide go away, right? The tide's already going out. The tide's going to go out anyway, right? But he's trying to deceive people, make them think, oh, my bucket, because I was taking the water and whatever, I made the tide go back. And that's what the propaganda and the lies of the vaccine pushes. They claim that they eliminated all of these so-called alleged infectious diseases. This is kadhib, this is propaganda. Right? And many of the doctors now, they are becoming aware that they have been hoodwinked and they've been lied to, right, about this particular issue. Because the propaganda is so basically great. So from that, when there were mostly these types of diseases, we've now moved to another category of diseases which are metabolic diseases. Right? So we've gone away from the era of the dirt diseases. Why? Because in most nations, especially in the Western nations, we live in clean houses, there is sewage, there's clean water, there's better nutrition, all of these social things that have eliminated those illnesses. The only places those illnesses are still present are in undeveloped countries like in Africa, India, South America, where they don't have clean water, right? They don't have sewage systems. That is the actual reason why you still have those types of diseases in those African countries, right? That's the real reason. It's not because of any virus or any like this or whatever, any germ, whatever. It's because they do not have the same social changes that happened in Europe, right? They don't have those changes, right? And yet we see these people, these so-called philanthropists, they come from the West and they say, well, we want you to accept LGBTQ, or we want you to take these injections, but they will never do anything to actually change the infrastructure. Why don't you give them clean water then? Why don't you take, say, we'll take billions and we'll give this particular African nation, we'll change its entire water structure, we'll give it a water supply, clean water supply, right? Why do you do that then? Why do you do that? You will see that the diseases will disappear. Why are you doing that? Why are you saying, you've got to accept LGBTQ, or you've got to accept our injections, and the World Bank will give you a loan, or the IMF will give you a loan, so your people can be, will have to pay taxes for decades afterwards just to pay for these drugs that we're giving you, or these injections that we're giving you. And at the same time, these are population reductionists as well at the same time. So the whole thing, you can see, it's a bit of a, But as I said, those diseases have largely gone. The new type of disease, the new era of disease is the era of metabolic syndrome. What does this mean? It means that we are eating chemicalized food, industrialized food. This is not real food. It's the big corporations have taken control of food production. We have pesticides, fertilizers. We have, depletion of the soil. And then also we are eating complex, we are eating so many different types of foods in the same meal that people will inevitably develop what we call a metabolic syndrome, right? The metabolics, the metabolism is not working that it ought to be because of all of these assaults upon the body. So this is why we have heart disease, we have cancers, right? We have diabetes, right? These are failings of the actual, like the metabolism of the body, right? This is the era of these types of disease that we're living in. And so if you want to live that type of lifestyle, then to be honest, the only medicine that's going to be applicable to you is the modern medicine. Like if you're eating chemicalized, industrialized, synthetic foods and pesticides and whatever, and that's poisoning your body, you're going to be prone to infections, what they call infections, right? It means that bacteria in your body, because your tissue is compromised and it's dying, then the bacteria are going to come to try and break that tissue down, right? And sometimes it can be so severe that unless you take antibiotics, you could actually die, right? So the medicine suits the lifestyle. And the prophetic medicine is all about living a simple, healthy life. And when you have illnesses or ailments, you will only need a very simple treatment, right? Simple things will work for you and benefit you. Honey, mixed in a glass of water, right? Ajwa dates in the morning, right? Because your body is maintained in a way that it is receptive to the prophetic medicine. Do you understand? Right? So coming back to this issue of homeopathy, then of course it's a medical system. There's nothing unlawful about homeopathy. Yes, they have their underlying theory and their understanding of the body, and there is a basis, you know, for what they say. There is some kind of evidence or research for what they say, and so we can't dismiss and start, you know, looking from the lens of the allopathic medicine, ridicule these people like what we find, you know, amongst the non-Muslims or people who are taught in the allopathic kind of medicine. No, we don't do that, because medicine varies, as Ibn al-Qayyim says, that every nation has its own experience, has its own understanding of medicine, and they take from their environment, you know, medicine from the animals or from the herbage or from just their experience, what they find to be effective from their experience. So we can't come along and now, you know, go to some tribe, you know, who's in South America in a jungle somewhere or whatever it might be, and they know from the environment what works for them. We can't say to you, you are backward. You know, where's your peer-reviewed, you know, paper? Where's your randomized controlled trials? You can't make those stipulations upon these people. This is just arrogance, right? And this is not a condition for medicine. Medicine is built upon tajriba. It's built upon experience, and that experience can be personal. It can be personal, right? And sometimes it's like medicine is like the layers of an onion. Imagine medicine and what's happening in the body is like the layers of an onion, right? And I'll give you one example of an illness, right? There used to be an illness called pellagra, a disease called pellagra, and this disease was thought to be an infectious disease because there were certain symptoms: a skin rash, right, dermatitis, diarrhea. You get diarrhea. There would be dementia, right, and you know people would obviously die as well, right? So now, if you come and look at this disease from the angle of there's some infectious agent moving around and whatever, then what you're going to do is you are going to develop a drug or something powerful, you know, antibiotic, and then give that to the people. And if you imagine the layers of an onion, your point of intervention is like towards the surface level of the onion, right? Because you are really coming to the like last stages or the last stage of where the symptoms are manifesting, right? But with pellagra, what was discovered, which is now known and established, is that this was simply a deficiency of a B vitamin. That's all it was, right? It was simply a deficiency of a B vitamin, right? So that's the asl. This is like the inner layer of the onion, right? The inner layer of the onion. So all you had to do is give this village or this population, give them high dosage, that particular B vitamin, and very shortly the illness will resolve and it will disappear, and that will be the end of it. And the reason why they got that illness is because in their diet, the type of food they were eating, they were chronically deficient of that particular vitamin, right? So medicine or the body, it's like the layers of an onion, right? And different theories, different understandings of medicine, they will have their particular intervention point, right? And the more insightful the medicine, then the closer to the center of the onion will be the intervention point. And that's why you have different doctors, and that's why you'll see different doctors. One doctor will come along and he'll see some guy with some sort of like, you know, infection, whatever. He'll say, like, drop him with antibiotics. So he'll be given the antibiotics. It'll kill off the bacteria that were trying to do something meaningful. It won't solve the underlying problem, but it will remove the apparent symptoms, right? The problem is still there in his body. And maybe it will come and surface in some other form later on down the line. You'll have another doctor and he'll say, well, okay, it seems to me that you have a deficiency for such. He'll give him, a supplement to take, whatever, and that disease will be gone and it'll never return again. Right? This is in the experience of people. So my point being that we can't, like this question is about homeopathy, and we can't look through the lens of modern allopathic medicine and just dismiss everything, because then you'd have to take the same approach towards the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah. You'd have to do that, right? You'd have to dismiss it as quackery or something, and this is not correct and this is not true. So the ruling on homeopathy, it is just another system of medicine. Also, what I want to mention as well is sometimes you have systems of medicine which observationally they might be true, but that particular civilization has added a layer of philosophy or belief that then confuses it a little bit, right? Even though the thing, from a purely physical point of view, it's actually true, right? So that's why you see, like in Chinese medicine or whatever medicine, right? Like when they speak about the acupuncture and the nerve issues, that's actually true, right? There is electrical energy flowing through your body, and there can be localized blockages, but then they might add some like philosophy or something on top of that, right? Yin and yang and this and that, whatever, right? So here we have to eliminate the philosophy, but the physical workings, there is truth in that. You understand? Right? But here homeopathy, as far as I can see, it doesn't contain any of these kind of beliefs or philosophies. It's an understanding of how the body and the water in the body, how it operates and how it functions. And you can take certain molecules that have certain frequencies and vibrations, you can put them in water, dilute it over and over again, and that water now has some record, or has some frequencies and vibrations, which then when you drink it, that then expands and goes to other places, and it alters the environment, right? And that's how the healing or the cure basically it happens. And so we can't dismiss that and say that's not true. This is what medicine used to be, and it was used to great effect, and even today many people they use it very effectively.